Okay, I'm Mike Willis with USA Wrestling. It's another edition of Team USA Tuesday, and I'm joined by 72-kilogram world team member Victoria Francis. Victoria, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, appreciate you taking the time. So I've got a list of questions in front of me. Are you ready to just jump into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, sounds good. Starting off, what is your favorite movie?
Oh, snap. I'm going to have to say Booksmart. That one just had me rolling in the theaters, and I can't watch it enough. It's great. It's a good movie.
All right. Favorite musical artist?
Musical artist. I'm going to say Florence and the Machine.
It's a good pick.
Thanks.
Favorite food, maybe favorite like healthy, maintaining your weight food, and then favorite food when you can eat whatever you want.
Favorite healthy dish would be, there's a salad I make, and it's arugula, ground chicken, sweet potatoes, sun-dried tomatoes, olives, and tahini. And it is just so many flavors in one dish. It's a good time, and it's fairly lean, so it's good for me. Not so healthy food, I'm going to have to say a stuffed crust pizza with pineapple top, and that is just good stuff.
Right on. Yeah, I'm also a pineapple on pizza person, so I can.
It's a new thing to me. I don't have hate for people who are against it, but I recommend people try it out.
Fair enough. What's your favorite sport to watch other than wrestling?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say like powerlifting or Olympic lifting, like just because even though I don't like understand other sports, like that's kind of easy to follow. Like they lift a lot of weight, they do the lift, like it's easy to follow, and it's incredible how much weight they can lift.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, I played basketball for a couple of years, not good at it. Softball and soccer, I think. And then in high school, I did cross country and track. So I've kind of had my feet dipped in multiple schools of sport.
What was your favorite sport to play besides wrestling?
Cross country. Cross
Cross.
country for sure. I was actually going to go to college for cross country instead of wrestling just because I loved it so much. We had a really just solid team culture at my high school, and I love those people for sure.
What changed your mind?
I started doing like really well in high school wrestling, like my senior year, especially against girls. And I also had an injury during my last season, and it took me off the mat for 3 weeks. And I was like, wow, this really sucks. I don't want to have to do this for 4 years when I could have wrestled for another 4 years. So I kind of changed my mind and started looking into schools for wrestling.
Yeah, fair enough. So who is your favorite wrestler to watch, either past or present?
Ooh, past or present wrestler to watch. Man. I'm gonna say Kyle Snyder. Like I really like watching him just because he's, big guy, big wrestler, but he, still slick, and I like his style. I like watching that.
Yeah, kind of hard to hate on Captain America.
Right, right.
So what are your favorite hobbies off the mat?
So I've gotten in graphic design the past couple years, and I really enjoy doing that. It makes a couple bucks also, but I enjoy doing it. I've got a couple dogs who take up some of my time, so I'm a part-time dog cuddler at home. And I love Pokemon Go. I started playing last year at Acclimation Camp for World Championships and haven't stopped since. So it's something me and my husband enjoy doing, going out and catching. So.
What's your Pokedex looking like?
Oh, it's pretty solid. I mean, they're still adding new Pokemon. Like this week, they just released 4 new ones. So I feel like I'm not catching up, but I have outranked my husband level-wise. So I'm going.
That's the most important part, right? Being
Right.
your friends, family.
Yeah.
What kind of dogs do you have?
I have 2 pit bull mixes. So one is pit bull and God only knows what. He's just a little small. And the other one's pit bull and probably boxer mixed in there. But they're both rescues, so don't really know what they got, but they're super cute. I like them.
Yeah, fair enough. So in terms of your graphic design stuff and your digital artwork, I mean, I've seen your stuff like all over the place. You've done graphics, that USA Wrestling has used. You've done graphics that I know that the Black Wrestling Association has used. Who else have you been doing some graphic work for? And I guess kind of how did you get into that and realize you were pretty good at it?
So some other projects I've worked with Wrestle Like a Girl. I did graphics to promote one of their galas a couple years ago. I've done graphics for Life University Women's Wrestling, Ferrum, and a couple individuals like Jenna Burkett. She's commissioned me to do a couple pieces. But I got into it a couple years ago, especially like during the start of my sanction. I was like, all right, I'm not wrestling full time anymore, so maybe I need to find something else to fill time and make money. So originally I was going to go into website design, and I was like, well, if I'm going to have a business, I need to make a logo. So then I started playing around with logos, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this more. And then right about that time was the first Final X series, and I was really disappointed with how little promotion the women were getting from certain wrestling media organizations. So I was like, all right, I'll make them. If no one else is going to do it, I can not help my team and my teammates on the mat, but I can help them promote themselves. So I started getting into it that way, and just kind of took off from there. So
That's really cool. I mean, it's always nice when you can find something you like and make a little money doing it.
right.
So that's awesome. So you can be funny or you can be serious with this answer, but what is your biggest fear?
Ooh, my biggest fear. Man, that's tough. I feel like honestly, like I have fear of other people's opinions of me, just generally. So it kind of messes with me mentally sometimes when I'm leading up to a tournament. It's like, oh man, I don't want to lose, or I don't want to be on the other side of a Big Move Monday video, you know, that kind of stuff. So I'd say that like affects a lot of areas of my life, and I have to rein that in and just realize that other people's opinion of me don't really matter. So
Yeah, and I think also the general population would say, "Holy cow, you're a women's world team member. That's incredible. You're
right.
like objectively, like you're a really incredible person." So, but I know athletes at your level are always striving to be the best. So I can't
Right.
the pressure you guys feel to compete with that.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Well, I think one thing that really helps is my husband has zero fear of what people care about him. So he really helps balance me out. Like if I start fretting about something, he's like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So that helps me just to do that. And then realizing that that fear itself is holding me back from doing my best, which is what I'm afraid of not doing. So just kind of just realizing that the fear isn't helping me, it's holding me back, and trying to just handle it and recognize it that way.
Thanks for sharing that, Victoria.
Yeah, no problem.
So you're in the thick of it right now, but have you thought about your post-competitive career and what you want to do?
A little bit. So this past year I got to coach with Life University, and that was a really cool experience. I wouldn't mind coaching, but I think there are also other ways that I could help the wrestling community. Maybe I would like to have my own wrestling club sometime, something I've experienced since I moved to Maryland. So I grew up in Illinois, and anytime I went to a club, I didn't have to pay like a drop fee or something. It's just like, all right, come on in, let's wrestle, whatever. But in Maryland, I've noticed kids have to pay a drop fee, and that just really bothers me because I understand the club has fees and expenses and needs covered, but I know some kids can't afford that and feel uncomfortable saying they can't afford it, so they just don't show up. So I hope someday that I can either run a club or help a club that just lets kids come in. You know, we can do the fundraising on the side, we'll take care of it, but we just want kids to come in and wrestle. I would like to continue graphic design, and me and my husband do hope to grow family, and I don't mind staying home. He doesn't mind being stay at home. But I think that's kind of important for raising a kid, is one of us being home with them. So those are some of the things that are in the future of us.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've got some really admirable goals, and the wrestling community will be lucky to keep you around after your career. So glad to hear it. So how did you first get involved in wrestling?
So my first involvement with wrestling was my younger brother wrestled in kids club when I was in 5th grade. So it got me exposed to their practices. My dad would, well, my brother was lifting, we'd be in the weight room attached to it, and I'd just be lifting. So I got that little bit of exposure, and then I'd go to his tournaments on the weekend and was able to see that girls were participating. So the next year when I went to sixth grade, I was originally going to do Scholastic Bowl, which is kind of like competitive trivia. And I felt like that wasn't for me, and I decided to go out for wrestling. I'm not really entirely sure why I thought I could handle wrestling. I was not athletic. I was not a gifted individual, but I did it, and that's how I started.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Those are two things that are sort of opposite ends of the spectrum, trivia and wrestling. But it's,
They are, but we actually had a couple athletes like on our middle school club or middle school wrestling team who did both. Like our school was actually really good at Scholastic Bowl. We were state champs.
yeah. Hey, well, glad you stuck with wrestling, or you picked wrestling.
Me too.
So 72 kilograms, not an Olympic weight. For senior nationals, you went down to 68, made the finals. What was it a hard decision picking whether you wanted to go 76 or 68?
I think the original decision to make it was fairly easy. During that summer training up to world championships, I got to wrestle both 68 kilo people and 76, both within our team and from other countries. And I was just like, wow, I feel kind of small for 76. I don't think that's quite for me. I feel much better at 60 against the 68 people. But then the actual weight cut and weight descent, I think I went into it with a bad just mindset, and it made it very difficult, especially that last, weight cut leading up to nationals. So the initial decision was easy, but the cut itself was not. But hopefully this year I come in with a better mindset, and so I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but easier.
Yeah. Do you think the COVID-19 era has made it, more difficult given the fact that you essentially have to maintain 68 for an entire year, longer than you expected to?
Well, I definitely did not maintain 68, to be real transparent with that. But I think it's been a nice little bit of break from the normal for me. I feel like my stress has been much lower, and it's allowed me to kind of take a step back and have a good view of what was going on last year, and kind of just reevaluate and reset my goals for this year and how I want to go forward. So it was a difficult break in the progress, but I think it was good. I think it was good for me to have that good reset time.
Yeah. So how have you been training and making sure you stay sharp with all the restrictions in place? I know you've got some gym equipment coming, but before that.
So we turned our living room into a weight room, super classy. We have a homemade rack. We got able to get some weights in. So I've been able to weight lift and do some conditioning that way. I'm fortunate enough to know a family in the area who has mats in their garage, and I've done privates for their daughter before. So I was able to work out with their daughter and her high school coach. So I've been able to stay active on the mat. It's not the same as usual. And then also I've been able to make a couple trips down to Life University. With Georgia being more open, it's been easier to get on the mat. I'm not going to full practices by any means because that does not feel safe yet for me. But we've been able to get me a couple practice partners and make a safe environment despite the pandemic. So I've been able to stay fairly active, but it's not 100% full go.
Gotcha. So coming into 68 kilograms, good news is, the weight class is qualified. The women's team has done an awesome job of qualifying all their weight classes. I wouldn't say bad news, but the challenge, I guess, would be, it's a tough field in general, and B, you've got Tamara Mensah-Stock winning the big team trials finals. The returning world champion. She's looked like one of the best wrestlers in the world. How do you prepare yourself for somebody like that, and for somebody that you've been teammates with?
That is difficult because it is hard to sometimes when I'm gearing up for a tournament or something, it's just easy to kind of almost demonize my opponents. I'm just going to kick their butts and I hate them, yada yada. But you can't do that with Tamara. It's just too great. But still, I've been able to kind of just stay focused and not put her on too high of a pedestal because that's kind of easy to do when you got a a world champ waiting for you. But I think the important thing for me in my training is realizing that our styles are very different, but that doesn't mean I have to change my style. It just means that I need to be confident in my style and understand how it works against hers. So that's how we've been kind of looking at it.
Gotcha. I guess last year it kind of, I mean, 76 has Adeline, who's one of the greatest of all time. 68 has Tamara, who's really been coming into her own. Last year when you're between the two weight classes and you're probably wrestling with both of them a little bit, are you kind of feeling them out? Are you kind of getting a feel for what they do? Or
I mean, I've been wrestling both of them for a few years. So, I mean, I feel like I have a feel of what they do. But I mean, I feel like anybody can almost have that, not necessarily a full-on feel, but they can watch video and, know that they hit this and hit that, and this is how they work. I don't think it's much of an advantage because they have the same feel against me and they know what I do. But I don't think I would say I was, feeling them out or, preparing for the next year, just because that really messes with my mind because it doesn't allow me to be in the present moment, focus on the training. And if I do start thinking too far forward, it turns into a bad practice for me and it's a lose-lose.
Yeah. What do you think is something that maybe, the casual fan or the general population doesn't really understand about being an athlete at the highest level?
I feel like we were talking earlier about, just the pressure of being, this high up. We understand that we've worked this hard and that we're great, but we also know we're just this close to being the greatest or the greatest ever. And we're always pushing ourselves that way. And sometimes it hurts to see on social media, like, oh, why'd they give up this takedown? Or it looks like they're not even working. It's like, trust me, we're working hard. It's just when you have the best versus the best, flaws come out and, we're vulnerable like that. So I think just realizing that we're not scrubs, we're out here working and we feel the pressure. So be gentle.
So I want to talk a little bit about the How She Wrestles hashtag. And I guess you can almost call it like a movement at this point. There's a Twitter account. You're someone that's been very actively involved in it and responding to the prompts with your own videos and your own notes. Can you just talk a little bit about it and how it came to be?
Yeah, so past couple months, there was kind of an eruption on Twitter about the coverage of women's wrestlers by different wrestling media organizations. So people kept saying, like, why don't you just start your own, organization, which obviously is just far-fetched and not going to happen. But it's like, do you want? You're right. Fine. We'll tell our stories. If people don't want to share our stories, we'll share our stories. So Julia Salata came up with the idea of hashtag How She Wrestles and the whole campaign. And I mean, there's a whole group of us behind it, but it's been really cool to just share some of these things. Like my first story was about my sanction, which is something I haven't shared with a lot of people. And it was just really cool to just get that info out there and share my story. It's been really incredible to listen to other people's stories, like within our group and, young athletes or retired athletes. It's just been a really nice movement to be a part of. And I really encourage anybody to participate in it. That's been just one thing that I've been hoping more for is participation outside of our group. Realizing it's not just national team, it's not just world team members or world medals who get to do this. Like, we want anybody who's part of the community to be participating in this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Going forward, where do you want, or what do you want to see, I guess I'd say, in terms of representation of women in wrestling in the media? And what kind of coverage do you, and I know you can't speak for all of women's wrestling, but do you personally feel like we should be seeing?
My big thing I've always been saying is proportional coverage. So I'm not saying, 1 out of 3 posts have to be about women, but if there is 10 wrestlers and one of them is a woman, then out of the 10 posts, one needs to be about women's wrestling. So I want to see proportional coverage, for women and for Greco. That's also a hope of mine. I'm kind of focused on the women because it affects me the most. But I want to see proportional coverage and just, I'm not sure the best word for it, but appropriate. So I don't want to hear posts, about my shoes and then see posts about Jordan's double. Like, I want to see posts about Jordan's double, and I want to see posts about my front headlock, making sure it's appropriate and promoting our wrestling past us, or past just our gender. It's, as us as athletes. So that's kind of my hopes for the media in the future for women's wrestling.
Does it feel like we're moving in the right direction?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, from what I'm seeing, I feel like it's improving, especially with USA Wrestling, what you guys cover. I feel like that's proportional. I see media outlets like Track Wrestling, I feel like is being more proportional. The open mat seems great. I love that Reaper Wrestling created itself to, step up and promote women's wrestling. So I feel like we're definitely in the right direction. It's just frustrating to me because it's like, eventually it's going to be equal. Or proportional. It's going to be proportional and fair. So why not just be there? Why not? Why are we wasting this time? But I understand things take time, and I just have to be patient. But yeah, it's going in the right direction.
Well, it's good to hear that from your perspective. At least we're working towards where we want to be eventually.
Right.
In your opinion, what's the best advice you've received in your career? Or maybe a piece of advice that really stands out?
Something that was told to me early on in wrestling in middle school is just, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And I've just applied that to wrestling. I've applied that to school, relationships, even if I want to have a lazy day. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to wear my PJs, my slippers, I'm going to order a pizza, and I'm going to watch Netflix, like doing it all out. So anytime I've been participating in something or working on something, I've always just given it a full effort and done my best. And if I realize that I'm not giving full effort, I realize it's probably just not worth my time anymore, and withdraw and spend that time on things that are important. So that's probably the best advice I'd have to say. Okay.
And then in a similar vein, if you were giving advice to someone that's kind of just starting out in their wrestling career, what would you tell them?
Have fun. Have fun. I feel like there's so much pressure, especially in wrestling. You just have to be tough, and you have to do it right, and you have to work hard, but have fun. Like, I feel like there's been times that I've just not had fun, and I wish going back I could have had fun, because I'm not going to get that moment back. And I feel like if you're having fun, you're enjoying yourself, and when you're enjoying yourself, you're going to put more effort in, and when you put more effort, you're going to succeed anyway. So say have fun.
What is your motivation during like your toughest training sessions? Like when you got to dig deep and do, one more sprint, or, you're just having an off day and you got to really bear down and get through it.
I'd say a couple of my motivations would be just remembering how far I've come. I started out in 6th grade as a little chunky girl who was not athletic, and I pushed through so many years of just mistreatment and, hard practices, and that fight is in there, and I just have to dig it up. I think another thing that motivates me is remembering how many people are behind me. Remembering my husband supports me, my coaches support me, teammates, family, friends, like all these people got my back, and they believe in me, so that I'm like, if they believe in me, I guess I'll believe in myself too. So I'd say those are probably my biggest motivations.
Gotcha. And this is my last question I have for you, Victoria. But what is your best wrestling memory to date?
Oh, best wrestling memory to date. Man, that's a tough one. I'm really gonna say winning Final X in 2019, just because everything that led up to that in the past year, and my husband got to be there. I had my personal coaches there. It was just a great moment. I remember stepping off the mat and just realizing that I had kind of conquered that year, and broke out into tears and was hugging my coaches. And there's a real blurry picture of it, but I love it, because it just really captures that moment and that feeling. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Victoria, thanks for coming on and talking to us a little bit and give us some insight into your your career and your off the mat life as well.
Yeah.
See you back wrestling again soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. This has been another edition of Team USA Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in.